Let's get to it here. We really want to hear from everyone, obviously, on yesterday and the last couple of days as it relates to the Eagles. John, why don't you take first crack at it related to the games? What stood out to you from the two games, either in and of themselves or as it relates to the Eagles? By the way, I'll say this. Eagles current or past, I'll get to that in a moment. John, what's hitting you here this morning, my man?
I got 5 takeaways from the conference championships. Number one, these games, the NFC game especially, made me hope Kellen Moore can do a Kyle Shanahan or Ben Johnson impression, meaning he can run the football like he's never run it before, because that's the way this league is coming full circle. Number two, the play calling did the pass protection for Detroit, especially in the first half. That's something we need to focus on. Play calling can do the pass protection for you when you run it. Number three, the NFC Championship game reaffirmed the NFL truth that badassery is rewarded.
Bad what?
Badassery.
Oh, bad. Okay.
It is what wins. And I think we got away from that. You know, tough is what wins. Tough-minded is what wins. The country club approach that I actually considered might be an effective approach is not the right approach. That NFC conference title game, those two teams, those are the tough teams. Those are the teams that everyone said, oh, man, they might be going a little too heavy on the guys, a little too rough with them. Well, that's what works. But you have to balance badassery, and this is number 4. You balance badassery with scheme. So you got the fine motor skills to go with the big muscles. And Kyle Shanahan has the fine motor skills. You know, you saw the shrewd X's and O's in the second half of the NFC Championship game. San Francisco schooled Detroit after halftime. Yes, emotion matters. And Nick Sirianni.
Yeah.
You know, the emotion part, that's great. And Dan Campbell had that. You know, the toughness, that was there for the Lions. The margin of victory is so small in this league that everything matters. And scheme and sight adjusts and hot routes that when they need to be run, sometimes they need to be run at the right time. If they're the answers that give you the best choice, the best chance, smart decisions and planning from the coaches really do make or break teams. And we just saw it. We just saw Dan Campbell get over-aggressive and potentially lose the game for his team. Number 5, my takeaway, number 5, Jalen is close. Jalen is close to being outstanding. That day started with Lamar Jackson being the shoo-in for MVP, and then he made mistakes. We watched him, physical errors. It was decision errors, tactical, mental mistakes. Gave the ball back repeatedly, in the red zone. Didn't use his gifts as wisely as we should have expected. Is he still the MVP? How much worse was Jalen this season than what we saw from Lamar in that game? I'm telling you, he's close. Todd Monken got Lamar Jackson playing at such a high level this year. He's so talented. It was masterful. But I've watched Jalen be a better decision maker than Lamar pretty consistently now for years. Jalen is close. With the right guidance and tutelage, he can get there,
listen,
Joe. Yesterday showed us that.
I'm happy to hear you say that, but I don't – there was nothing about yesterday that told me that. I mean, for what it didn't even dawn on me to think that.
Jeez.
Look, we'll see where everyone stands at 215-592-9494 on a lot of things there. What John said at the end is interesting. I don't know if it's accurate. I hope it's accurate. There's so much that went through my mind. Number one is I got to just lay – so some of it's going to be just those games themselves and some related to the Eagles. Number one is Mahomes. Guys, he is in a Jordan Gretzky zone. I mean, I know he didn't play like the greatest second half. I consider it a joy of life to watch this guy play sports. I mean that. I mean, and I'll say this. I don't know who thought of this yesterday. I did. I think it explains the Eagles losing that Super Bowl last year a little bit more now. I mean, and I tried to say that last year, and a lot of people didn't want to hear it. We talked so much about the flag and the field and Jalen's fumble. I mean, what about the fact that, like, the other guy, the guy walks on water? I don't know what else to say. I mean, this dude now, in 6 years as a starter, 6 AFC Championship games, and 4 appearances in the Super Bowl. So I'm not saying that makes me feel better about the fact that the Eagles lost last year. It's just, like, I remember when the Flyers lost to Gretzky in 85 and 87, and it was like, well, wasn't really much more you could do about it. I'm not saying there's not more the Eagles could have done last year to win that game. The Eagles made a plethora of mistakes. But it is 2 years in a row that there is a commonly held assumption in society that the Kansas City Chiefs beat a team with a better roster. And I'll tell you this, I never bought into the Ravens. I was very clear on Friday about that. I mean, listen, Lamar was pathetic yesterday. He was pathetic. And I think it's pathetic that so many people in society, so many Americans, thought Patrick Mahomes was going to lose to Lamar Jackson. But that's what people thought. I think it's nuts.
Lamar Jackson was incredible this season. Lamar Jackson lifted his play. It was so much different. It was so much improved.
I don't know.
And it just was, and it fell off. Like, he really looked terrible in that game. It was not. It wasn't representative of the Lamar that you saw for the rest of the season.
I believe you, and obviously I didn't watch every play of the Ravens games. I saw them, sometimes. I just never bought it from what I saw. Anyway.
It's got a lot of it. A lot of it has to have to do with great defense. I mean, Kansas City's defense really is legit at this point.
There's no doubt. But
they throw so much at you, it gets in your head. Yeah, they put him in the worst position possible, and credit Kansas City.
All right, so 215-592-9494 on all that related to Mahomes and Lamar and your takeaway from that. And I am curious, do you view the Super Bowl from last year in any sort of different light? Mahomes is going to win 5, 6, or 7 of these things by the time it's all said and done. So does it make you view it differently that the Eagles got by Mahomes? All right, next thing. Enough of the Lions. Enough. I'm done. Enough. I don't mean to come in here in surly guy mode, but look, they should have won the game. They completely spit it up. They started dropping passes left and right. If they just caught the ball, they win the game.
If they have better players, they win. But here's the thing, Joe. They're gonna have better players.
You know what?
There's gonna be players around this league who are, it's a toss-up between Detroit and somewhere else.
They're also about to pay Jared Goff a lot more money,
and they're about to have a harder schedule. So good luck with that. Packers
and
win.
You know what? And
Packers win the division next year. Let's see if the
too.
Lions even make the playoffs.
And their coach is straight up with them and tells them, hey, it's going to be harder next year.
Right.
Who knows if we'll ever get back here? He's like the only honest coach in this profession, and they respect that, and they're going to work harder for him for it.
We'll see. All right, 49ers, highly annoying. Not that good. Completely ridiculous that they're favored in the Super Bowl against the Chiefs. Completely ridiculous. Irritating. I'm in a bad mood that the 49ers are going to be in front of us for the next 2 weeks. I'm in a really lousy mood about that. That whole thing irritates me to the high heavens. But the good news is I don't think they're going to win the Super Bowl. Now, let me bring it a little bit more to the present-day Eagles. Irritating. Watching a lot of offenses in this whole playoff thing, including yesterday, including a guy like Jared Goff, who's not that good, but generally played pretty damn good. Just irritating.
He was incredible in the first half yesterday.
Listen, John, I hear you, man.
He looked incredible, unstoppable.
He did. Very irritating to watch offense. I agree with you. Very irritating to watch offense be played as it should be. And
by Jared Goff.
And that bothers me as an Eagles fan.
And
it bothers me that Sirianni couldn't frickin' figure it out, or Jalen couldn't frickin' figure it out in damn December. Let's just call it mid-December, when it was obvious for a stretch of time that the Eagles' offense was far from humming. I still cannot believe that they went into a playoff game and said, let's just do the same thing. So as it relates to, Kellen Moore and Vic Fangio and all that, and I know a lot of people are going to be somewhat pumped up. Not like over the moon, but somewhat pumped. Oh, upgrade. Well, you know what? Freaking upgrade the players on defense, because otherwise Vic Fangio is going to have no shot with Manny, Mo, Jack's sister, Kelly, and Frank. Because that's what the Eagles had on defense, okay? So improve the damn talent on defense. And as far as offense goes, I don't know, guys. I'm skeptical. I was so troubled by the way Jalen finished the season. I was troubled. Like, is Sirianni's hands in the cookie jar or not in the cookie jar of having involvement in the Eagles offense? I don't know. We'll find out. I know that I lost a lot of trust in him. I know Kellen Moore is considered by many an upgrade. Does Kellen Moore report to Nick Sirianni, or does he report to Howie Roseman? Or does he report to Jeffrey Lurie? Where does that whole thing go?
We're back to that point.
I'm back to that. And you know what?
Look,
Can I tell you one more, John? Can I tell you one more?
I think we have to assume that Nick is now cut off from some of the previous job descriptions that I thought he held
John,
on the offensive side of things.
I know.
I think he's now no longer allowed to do these things.
Listen, I think
when they spoke after the season in that 9 days, in the lost 9 days, I think it was, hey, you are no longer allowed to take over and say, hey, no, this play is going to be the play. You are no longer allowed to be designing plays and doing that stuff that you like to do. You are now in a very specific and different role. You have an offensive coordinator and a defensive coordinator, and they have more power than you do as it pertains to the X's and O's. You absolve your power.
Yeah,
I think they had that discussion.
Well, I hope so, frankly. Well, I got one more thing from yesterday. I got to get off my chest because it's actually my biggest. James, I'm going to frame this way. With all due respect to the 2017 Eagles.
Uh-oh.
Who deserve, James, nothing but respect, glory, and love, right?
All of it, yes.
All of it, right? Have you now considered, James, and perhaps for the first time on WIP it should be presented, that maybe the last 11 years of Eagles history would be even better if they hadn't fired Andy Reid? I now need to present that for the first time. Guys, I actually put up on Twitter yesterday after the game. Guys, I was all for firing Andy. I want to be crystal clear. This ain't Joe D walking back something Joe D didn't say. No, I was all out on Andy. But I will tell you this, watching that game yesterday, and I didn't think Andy was a bum or a bad coach. I just thought time for a change, that whole deal, okay? But watching that game yesterday, it's now 11 seasons. And one has been an Eagles championship, a Super Bowl. And 2 times they've gotten there. Watching that game yesterday and the outcome, it really dawned on me for the first time. I said to myself, and I put up on Twitter, if the Eagles had not fired Andy Reid after 2012, how many Super Bowls would they have in these now 11 years? 0,
have Patrick Mahomes?
1,
yeah, that's the question.
2,
Would they have had Mahomes?
3, 4, I don't know. I mean, to the Mahomes point, I don't know. Andy Reid saw something to Mahomes and said, we're moving up to go get that guy. So I don't know the answer to the Mahomes thing. Here's what I do know. Andy Reid's better than anything the Eagles have had. He's better than anything they've had.
Oh, he's better than everything.
Well, I'm just saying it's the first time because 2017 was always the trump card. Oh, well, yeah, but we won. Well, yeah, the Chiefs might be about to win again, which is after they won again, which is after they won the first time. They're about to have 3. 215-592-9494.
And if you stop time and you brought Andy back now and plopped him right in here, I think he could have success. But at that time, at that moment in the timeline, it was no longer tenable with Andy in Philadelphia.
That's what people thought, but is that accurate or not accurate? All right, all of it on the table. 215-592-9494, including, of course, the Fangio and Kellen Moore hire. Your opinion of that? Where do you stand on all of it? Joe DeCamera and John Ritchie off and rolling on this Monday morning. I mean, really, the Andy Reid thing, what do you make of that? Is that crazy talk? Or is that maybe on point? Joe DeCamera and John Ritchie on WIP.